Alright everyone, Lego's back with a small project this time, but with an interesting concept that I've been kept in my head for a long time. And this is now I decided it was time to act it out. What you're seeing me do right now is prepare some markers in Inkscape, which is the small symbols you can attach to the nodes. I'm making a few simple ones here to test if my idea is viable, and I'll come back to their actual usage later. Anyone who's had a passing familiarity with Grubbifreyan will immediately know where this is going. These are the letter modifiers that I'm now putting down into marker form so that they are all identical, act in the same way, and are completely beholden to the master node. So I can change all of them by changing the master. This is a very powerful tool once you have a simple thing that repeats itself a lot in a project. And I started out by doing that bit of preparation beforehand. Now, here is the center of my little project here, and I put in a delta. If you remember my Archimedes lock project, then this should give you a pretty good idea of what is about to happen here. And if not, then of course you saw the thumbnail and you know where this is going. I am putting out some vaguely concentric circles here, and the paths those circles take are more guidelines in this case. I want a semi-controlled environment here to place my letters on, and you'll see why in just a moment. But in case it's still a bit unclear, this is Grubbifreyan 2, the improved version I made on top of the existing framework, with more letters, more combinations, more punctuation, more everything. And for now, I'm making the actual flowers, but I'm not doing any decorators. I'm just putting in a few lines to remind myself what is supposed to be what. In hindsight, I should have color coded those from the start to denote the different types of modifiers, because there's only three types of modifiers really. Four technically if you include the vowel add-on, but nonetheless, not color coding it at this stage was a bit of a waste. I could have spared myself some time by doing that immediately, and then I wouldn't have to do it again later on when I actually needed to know which was which. On the other hand, of course, it gave me the incentive to do a better proofread than I probably otherwise would have done. And I'm not convinced that it didn't help, but nonetheless, I would have liked to color code it a bit earlier. So, but anyway, here we are. I am doing some work here. You can see the text out on the right side. That's my little reminder of what I'm doing. And otherwise, there's not a lot to it. I'm placing down my flowers. I am sort of planning 1-2 letters ahead to see how much space I'm going to get, how I'm going to try and branch this thing out. And at the same time, I'm trying to not be too predictable in what I'm doing. I'm trying to do some interesting jumps back and forth between the various layers. So it's not just one layer completed, move to the next layer, complete that layer, move to the next. I'm trying to be a bit erratical, a bit non-linear-ish in my approach here to make it a little bit more interesting. Now, at the same time, I also know that I need to make some space, at least in theory, for the modifiers themselves. So I can't really cram everything right up to each other. I need space for the extra stems and leaves and other various dots and stuff. So I'm trying to make space for some stuff that I don't know exactly how much space it's going to take up. It's an interesting thing to try and figure out anyway. But I think I managed it, especially because the quote is rather short. So there's like 8 words or something. It's not terribly much to work with, but I do like the idea and principle of this type of framework because it's infinitely expandable. You don't know how many layers it's going to take up, and you don't need to know, because if it turns out you need more, you can just add more layers outside and, you know, tangle the web out and you know, bind the whole thing together by just jumping out and back and forth to that layer to integrate it into the whole, and voila, you got a bigger web. Now, I say web, I should probably say maze, because I don't think it's a secret at this point that I'm doing the maze from Creed. Actually, that maybe that should have been part of the quote. Actually, I do like Creed. Anyway, it's the Labyrinth of Daedalus. So there you go. Spoilers. And we are about halfway through, I think, now, with the actual text, marking a little bit of green there to denote that it's going to be a hollow flower, which I'm going to rectify later. And the green is also reserved for punctuation in this case. But other than that, there's not a lot of color coding going on. The only thing I need to keep track of in my head is mainly which word is which is why I have a few select actual letters in there to help me remind myself what I'm doing between sessions. But otherwise, the only color coding I really need here is the okay, I don't know where I was going with that. It's gone. Anyway, I'll probably remember that later. Yeah. So no, what I was going to say beforehand was my main concern with keeping track of stuff is the roadmap in my head, and I'm trying to wrap my text around the areas where it makes sense. I'm trying to utilize the space evenly, so I don't have a ton of empty areas, but I also don't have, you know, a very dense area in other places. I'm trying to keep it fairly homogeneous, and you can see there at the end there I tried to plan out the last 6-7 letters so that they take up the amount of space that I have left, which is usually a very hard deal to do in Grubbifreyan, but it's very easy to make a few letters take up a lot of space. It's very hard the other way around. And I'm also really abusing the notion of vowels in the content table to keep the amount of splits and parallel stems to a minimum, which helps me make everything more even, and it also helps to chain things together in a more linear fashion. That's a big help for me at this stage. And other than that, there's not a lot to it in terms of technique. I use concentric circles wherever I can, and otherwise I just use some fairly simple lines that are pretty easy to maintain in all directions. I'm also generously abusing the fact that you can't affect other letters by overlapping lines. So all the places where lines intersect and cross over, that's not going to mean anything. It's not going to change any meaning or destroy any readability. It might be a little confusing at some points, but I mean, that's my job to make sure that I have a red thread through the whole thing that makes sense. Other than that, it's fairly straightforward. I mean, it's one long chain of words, starting at the center with a thick focus, and then just moving out in the pattern of the labyrinth. So it should be fairly obvious. Now, at this stage, I'm doing the color coding I wish I did earlier for the actual modifiers. Right now, I'm just doing one type of each, so I have the necessary qualities present, and then later on, when I have the space mapped out, I might decide to add some extra quantities wherever I feel like. But for now, I am just marking out the correct modifiers, and then in a moment I'm going to see if my preparation work for the actual markers is going to pay off. And it was immediately apparent to me that no, I hadn't quite considered the scale that I settled on at the end. and it meant that I actually had to readjust the master scale for the slingshot leaf and the leaf version of these. And you can see the leaf was fairly easy to bend into shape, but the slingshot leaf was being a bit difficult. I'm not sure if it was a bug or if I just didn't use the menu properly, but any changes I made to the master leaf didn't really seem to take, and it started really hacking up in terms of the scaling, and the link between the X and Y scales completely went haywire, and I couldn't make any sense at all. It started going off the charts in both directions. It started scaling completely disproportional to what I inputted, and half the time it didn't seem to retain those changes. It was really annoying. I ended up doing some manual editing to actually get it to stick, and I can't tell you what eventually made it work, but here we are. Right now I'm adding the leaves, and this is where the marker method really shines through, because I have to make hundreds of these potentially, and it would be the same process. All the leaves are identical in both size and orientation. It's really powerful to have that option, and at the same time, I could make different variations if I wanted to. So I could, keep some sort of identity across all of them, but still leaving the most of the work to the actual marker, so I don't have to deal with that. I'm also at this stage dealing more with the various ways of taking up more space. So now I'm considering the last pieces of space I have left, and how to best fill those out, and at the same time trying very very hard to not get in the way of my own reading direction and the red thread that I have throughout this whole thing. I don't want the reader to find a cross section or an intersection where they are in doubt of which direction they're supposed to go. So I'm trying to not give you the wrong impression of which way is the right way. But you get the idea. At this point, we have a maze made out of text that talks about a very famous mage. That's the gist of this whole thing, and I'm really really happy with the overall composition of this project, and I'm really happy with the markers, and I'm really happy with the way that technique fit the project at hand. Now, the last second here, or rather the last hour or something, I dedicated to doing some finishing touches, and then I am going to color code this. Now, color coding, I had an idea, then that idea turned into something else, and I'm not honestly too sure if I like it or not. The thing I like most, honestly, is the delta in the middle. It is exactly as I envisioned. It's exactly what I thought it should be. The text itself is a little bit more meh, because I actually really wanted to do a carving like I have done in the past, but I couldn't really muster up the energy to do it when it came to it. That's really the best excuse I have. It suddenly I didn't feel like it once I had it all set up. So I started out with the gold and black paint scheme, which you can see here. Then that turned into some kind of ish sort of limestone, sandstone theme thing, and I tried to do the carving, but it really, I didn't really, I wasn't too enthusiastic about it really. So I just did the bare bones shadow work and called it a day really, and I don't even think I really wanted to do that very badly. So at the end of that, I just decided to slap a texture on it and call it a day. This is definitely not my most enthusiastic work. I was more happy in hindsight about the actual method and the framework than I actually was of the coloring, which is a bit unusual for me because usually I like the coloring the most. In this case, I just really wanted to finish it. I wasn't really feeling it, but the actual text itself I'm very happy with. So I will disregard the colorization here and just say that I wanted it done and I got it done. End of story. Moving on. So there we have it. Not a carving, not really anything, but it has the delta symbol, it has the maze, and it has the technique. So I'm really happy with that first part of it. The coloring not so much. But anyway, that's the little demo project proof of concept thing for Grubbifreyan 2. And I hope you liked it, and I will see you another time. Bye.